Can you factor by grouping and show the work for this?
Factor by grouping.
Factor by grouping is what's being asked.
Okay, I'm going to look up factor by grouping and think if that's something different than what I'm thinking of, but go on.
Okay, so the expression is 5x squared plus,
I think I know what they mean. Okay.
plus 50xy
Okay.
plus 125.
Oh, 125. Okay, factor by grouping. I get where they're going.
Well, if you want to factor it the way that you would.
I do. I know what we're doing. Okay, we're doing factoring by parts. And this is not really my favorite method of factoring, just because, hang on, I'm trying to think if I can explain this completely from start to finish. I'm going to factor the way I would factor, and then from there, we'll kind of, I'll get into the factor by grouping. But one thing I notice is that, was there a y on that 125 by any chance?
There was not. Would you expect there to be one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Just wondering. All right, one of the things that I noticed about this is that when you're factoring, one of the ways that we can factor is by looking at for greatest common factor. So if we have more than one term, which we have 3 terms in this expression. In fact, terms are typically separated with pluses or minuses, if you're wondering what terms are. I underlined each of them. And when you're finding the greatest common factor, you're trying to find a factor that is common or similar in all 3 of these terms. And when you do that, what you do is you look at your coefficients. Coefficients are just my numbers. And you also look at your variables. Now, none of them have any repeat variables, which is one of the reasons I asked if there was maybe a y in there. But if we look at our coefficients, you see 5, 50, and 125. A factor that is common between all 3 of those is 5. And so what we can do is we can take each of our terms separately and factor out a 5. And one of the things I think that's confusing sometimes with my students is they're like, well, what does factor mean? Factoring is just dividing. When we're factoring it out, we're dividing it out. Think back to whenever you factor a number, like 12. When we factor it or break it down, we're dividing it by the 2 things that multiply to get to it. So what I would really be doing if I'm factoring a 5 out of 5x squared is taking 5x squared divided by 5. And so when I factor out the 5, I'm just left with x squared. So I'll put that in my parentheses. And then when I do that with 50, xy, so 50 divided by 5 gives me 10, and then the xy is still there. So I'm left with 10xy. And then when I do 125 divided by 5, I get, I believe that's 25. So I get that. So I get this expression. And now this is where I was wondering if there was a y or a y squared at the end.
Because it would make more sense in that case?
Yeah, because you could factor it further, but you can't factor it any further now with just a random y in it.
Okay, so this could be the furthest you could go in this instance, but do you want to add the y in and just take us there, just in case?
We could do that. So let's see. So we're going to assume, we're making an assumption here, that there may have been a y squared at the end of this. I'm making that assumption, maybe, that it might have been there. And I'm going to move my parenthesis here. So if that's the case, if there was a y at the end, factoring by parts or by grouping, it's kind of like 2 different ways of thinking of it, factoring by parts or grouping. So thinking of, all right, we already took out the 5. What we could do is look at these 2 terms separately and look at a common factor in that. And we would say that x is common in that. So we could take out the x and then plus 10y. And then, you know what, I'm going to go back to this just because I'm really not sure about this problem being a y squared.
Okay. But assuming it was the way it was given.
Assuming it was the way that it was given.
You took it as far as you could get in that first
Yeah,
instance.
that's as far as we can factor it.
Fair enough.
So that would be our factored form. If you can, we'll go back to my screen one more time. This would be it. And again, I have a feeling that there was maybe a y squared at the end of it because it would just work out so much nicer. But let me know. Let me know. If I didn't write your problem correctly, then let me know so we can do the correct problem.
Okay.
Subscribe! Come on, push the button.
You know you want to.
Do it.